All right. This is Mummy Brown. It's a beautiful warm paint that artists use for hundreds of years to create some of the world's most famous paintings. But there's just one problem with it. It's made from dead people. Today, we're going to talk about something that's going to make you look at your own creative tools very differently. Because here's the thing, every tool we use to create art, to express ourselves, to make something beautiful, they all came from somewhere. They all have their origin stories. And some of those stories are really, really dark. And I think as artists, whether you paint, play music, take photos, or make anything creative, you deserve to know where your tools came from. Because this isn't just history, this impacts how we create today. Let's start with something that sounds like it came from a horror movie, but was actually standard practice for centuries. Mummy Brown. For 400 years up until the 20th century, this was one of the most popular brown paints in Europe. Artists loved it. It had this rich, warm tone that was perfect for shadows and skin tones. But here's what they were actually painting with. European color makers took real Egyptian mummies, dead animals and people that were thousands of years old. They would ground them up into powder, and then they'll mix that powder with oils and sold them as premium paint. Think about that for a second. While Europeans were creating what they considered prolific art, they were literally painting with the desecrated remains of another culture's ancestors. This created a whole business built on stealing from graves. People would break into Egyptian tombs that had been sealed for thousands of years just to get more mummies to feed European art studios. And here's the crazy part. Many artists had no idea. It wasn't until the late 1800s that word started getting around. A few artists started discovering bits of hair and teeth and bones in their paint. Over time, the industry just fizzled out. But one London paint manufacturer didn't stop creating this until 1964. And when asked why they finally quit, they said, and I'm not kidding you, they ran out of mummy material, as in they ran out of dead bodies. Now you might think, okay, Wei, like that's gross, but that's old history. How does this affect me today? Well, here's the thing. This pattern where art tools come from dark places, it's not just some weird old story. It's everywhere. It's in the music you play, it's in the photos you take, it's in the films you watch, and the designs you create. Let me show you what I mean. Take this, the banjo. When you hear it, you probably think of bluegrass music and folk songs, maybe some wholesome country gathering. But the banjo story is one of the most brutal examples of cultural theft in American history. The banjo came to America in the hulls of slave ships. Enslaved Africans brought it here in the 1600s. It evolved from an African instrument called banjar. For about 200 years, this was only enslaved Africans' music. The banjo was their instrument, their sound, their way to keep their culture alive in the face of unimaginable oppression. The banjo was considered so powerful in maintaining African identity that some enslavers banned its use out of fear that it would foster resistance and rebellion. But then, in the mid 1800s, white performers discovered that they could make money off of it. So they crafted something called minstrel shows. And this is where it gets really dark. White performers would paint their faces black with burnt cork, put on exaggerated costumes, and mock enslaved people while playing their music. They turned the banjo into a prop for racist entertainment. These shows were wildly popular. Hundreds of performers traveled the country. They made white people rich while making fun of black culture. And it got so big that many black musicians stopped playing banjo completely. Their own instrument had become so connected to racist mockery that they couldn't stand to play it anymore. So when you hear banjo music today, even the most innocent, joyful bluegrass, you're hearing an instrument whose modern popularity was built on cultural theft and racial humiliation. All right, before I move on, if you want all my notes on creativity, my best insights, just tap the link in the description and tell me where to send them. Now let's talk about something that was probably in your childhood home: the piano. For over a century, piano keys were made from real ivory. It was seen as a mark of quality. If you had ivory keys, you had a real piano. But every ivory key represented a dead elephant. And during the 1800s, as piano became fixtures of middle class homes, demand for ivory exploded. Each elephant tusk contained the material used for piano keys, but only a small portion of each tusk was usable, meaning that it took multiple elephants to make a single piano's worth of ivory keys. Tens of thousands of elephants were slaughtered every single year. But it wasn't just elephants who suffered. The ivory trade was built on brutal exploitation of African labor. People were forced to hunt elephants and carry heavy 100-pound tusks, often barefoot and chained across long, dangerous trips. By the late 1800s, these routes were packed with forced labor, all to meet Europeans' demand for piano keys. We stopped using real ivory in the 1900s. But think about this. For generations, families gathered around pianos for music, for joy, for bonding, never knowing that their instrument was built on colonial exploitation and animal slaughter. Okay, this next one is going to be really uncomfortable. Some of the most basic film techniques you see in every movie, every commercial, every music video, they were perfected by Nazi propagandists. Meet Leni Riefenstahl. She was Adolf Hitler's personal filmmaker, and she was a genius. She pioneered dramatic camera angles, long tracking shots, sweeping aerial photography, mass crowd choreography, and innovative editing rhythms. These techniques weren't just impressive, they were revolutionary. She basically invented a new way to make movies look epic and powerful. But here's the problem. She made all of this to make Nazis look glorious. Every innovative shot was designed to make Hitler's rallies seem amazing and mythical. It worked so well that Hollywood adopted her techniques. That famous medal ceremony scene in Star Wars, that directly was inspired by her crowd shots. Today, these techniques are everywhere. Sports broadcasts, political rallies, action movies, commercials, they all use the visual language that was literally forged to serve Nazi propaganda. So every time you see a dramatic low-angle hero shot or a sweeping crowd scene, you're seeing techniques that were perfected to make evil look beautiful. Okay, I have 3 more shocking notes to share with you, but before I do that, I just want to let you know that I created a free 30-day course on unlocking your creative potential. It's easy to join, just tap the link in the description of this video, and every morning I'll email you one powerful lesson with one simple assignment, all for free. All right, now let's talk about photography. For decades, color film had a big problem. Actually, let me be more specific. Color film was never meant to see everyone. Let me explain. Every color film, like Kodak stock, was chemically designed to accurately capture light to medium skin tones. But when it came to darker skin tones, the film just couldn't see them properly. Photo labs used something called Shirley cards to calibrate their color printing machines. And guess what? Every single Shirley card had a white model on it. The result was that photographs of black and brown people often came out too dark, distorted, blurry, or literally hidden in the shadows. It was as if the camera couldn't see them. This went on for decades. And you know what finally made Kodak fix their film in the 1980s? Was it complaints from black consumers? Nope. It was furniture and chocolate companies. They demanded film that could show different shades of brown wood and chocolate better. Think about that. The camera companies cared more about photographing furniture than photographing black people correctly. All right, next up we have fashion. Fashion is supposed to be about self-expression, right? Like about creativity and personal style. But so much of what we consider inspired design is actually cultural theft. Designers often take sacred symbols and traditional patterns and culturally significant art forms from indigenous and marginalized communities and turn them into trends. Urban Outfitters once sold a Navajo clothing line that included everything from fake headdresses to, and I'm not kidding, Navajo hipster panties. They were literally selling sacred, holy symbols as underwear. The Navajo Nation had to sue them to get them to stop using their name in cultural imagery. And it's not just one company. This happens everywhere. These aren't just patterns. They're often sacred symbols with deep spiritual and cultural meaning, but they get turned into trendy accessories for people who don't care about their real significance. And now we come to the most current and final example. AI image and text generators. These are the newest tools in our creative toolkit. And even though they are helpful, they might represent the biggest art theft in human history. These AI programs learn by being trained on billions of images and text stolen from the internet without asking for permission. We're talking about entire careers, lifetimes of art just taken. Now, AI can create things that look exactly like specific living artists and writers who never said it was okay to copy their work. Artists are suing, saying that every AI generated content is basically built on stolen work. So every time someone makes an image with AI, every time they ask AI a question, they're using a tool built on the largest art theft operation in history. Okay, so we've looked at 7 examples spanning 500 years. Paint from corpses, instruments stolen from enslaved people, piano keys made from slaughtered elephants, film techniques from Nazis, cameras that ignored black people, fashion built on cultural theft, and AI trained on stolen art. But what's the pattern here? In almost every case, these tools got their power by taking something from people who couldn't fight back. And here's what really bothers me. We usually have no idea about these dark beginnings. We just use these tools and think they're normal, but they're not normal. They carry their ugly history with them. And now, I'm not saying that you should never use AI, or to throw away your piano, or stop making movies, or never use color photography. That just would be crazy. But I think that we need to face this history because knowing where our tools came from changes how we think about making art. Sometimes knowing this history leads to better tools. Fake piano keys that don't need ivory, film that captures all skin colors, AI training that respects artist rights. The tools we use, the techniques we learn, the styles we adopt, they all came from somewhere. And I think we have a responsibility to understand that somewhere. Not to feel guilty about it, not to stop creating, but to be conscious creators. To ask ourselves, where did this come from? Who was helped or hurt in the process of making it? How can I use these tools in a way that respects their full story? Because when we create with awareness, when we know the full story of our tools, I think we actually make better art, more honest art, more human art. So the next time you pick up a brush or play a piano or take a photo or write a song, remember, you're not just using a tool, you're inheriting a history. And what you do with that history, well, that's up to you. The tools we use to create beauty often started with darkness, but maybe by understanding that darkness, we can create something truly bright.